If you remember when AEW started in 2019, there were people talking about it. I want to say it was Cody, maybe even Tony, that there was a chance that the wrestlers wouldn't be independent contractors. They would be employees, that there'd be a union, that there'd be benefits. A lot of things that EVPs got that wrestlers never got. And nothing ever changed. Tony tries to act like he's the baby face and it's the big mean WWE. He does the same things that they do. It's just he looks like a putz doing it, so you don't take it seriously.
Yeah, well, and think about this now. If this was supposed to be, and without violating any NDAs, I think he said it in a number of places that it was going to be a very wrestler-friendly company. And the boys were going to have a say in how things went, and the fans were going to appreciate that. And, it was like that, like we said, this biggest crowdfunding effort in history. But the wrestler-friendly company, right? It became the wrestlers that he was friendly with company. The EVPs got all that, and then some of the family members got employment status. But you could have, if he had had any fiscal responsibility, had a manageable talent roster of a legitimate size where that you weren't paying 170 guys and girls and showing half of them on television on any kind of regular basis, if that. If he wasn't paying a couple $100,000 for songs because he's a mark for the Ring of Honor tapes, that type of thing, you could have actually made these people employees and given them the benefits and deducted the Social Security and paid the Social Security and do all the things with the taxes that the normal jobs do. And it wouldn't have cost him anything more than what he's already lost. But he's playing fantasy promoter rather than running responsible business.
Yeah, and what's their argument? I'm not asking this facetiously. What is their argument for firing Kevin Kelly? Is it because of the QAnon thing? Is that what they've said they fired him for? Is it buyer's remorse? What is it? Is AEW firing someone for buyer's remorse?
Well, as soon as he had this issue with Ian is when they stuck Tony on Saturday nights and in the lead chair that Kevin was supposed to occupy. And then remember, we started seeing him. Well, Kevin's over in a corner a lot of the night.
Yeah, but that's part of the thing too. Shivani, who's the ultimate stooge for Tony Khan. What happened when Jim Ross was introduced onto TBS in 1988? Now they like to pretend they're buddies.
Yeah.
There were problems because Shivani thought that he should be where Jim Ross was. And Jim Ross at the time was the best there was in the business. Shivani and Heenan in WCW famously didn't get along. And famously, a lot of it was Shivani's attitude and being a kiss-ass stooge for The Office. And here he is here, and Kevin Kelly gets brought in to do Collision from New Japan, right? Was it him and Nigel? I'm trying to remember what the original, I forget who they paired him with now on Collision.
I believe it was Kevin and Nigel.
So they start doing it, remember the first few weeks with Punk and those FTR matches, we said Kevin Kelly was knocking it out of the park. It seems at some point his confidence was knocked out, and that happens when you shove Shivani in there. An unnecessary third person who then all of a sudden became the lead commentator on the show.
Well, and now we find out that probably that was done because Kevin was having some issue with The Office in trying to resolve some of these things.
The Office. The Office. I mean, you need an office to be an office.
Or as the boys used to say, the orifice.
And the other thing is, you can disagree with parts of this, I guess, as a fan from afar, and realize there are other elements of this that, yeah, of course, and it's not even an AEW thing. Wrestlers are employees. It's a WWE thing, it's an AEW thing. It's not an independent thing. I'll let CMLL deal with their own situation. But WWE controls their wrestlers' lives. AEW may not be as hands-on, but they're as restrictive as they want to be, and as the same kind of restrictions as WWE whenever they want to be, for any reason they want.
Well, it's the same kind of contracts they're signing. It's just that Tony, because he owns the whole thing and answers to no one, can just say, oh, yeah, you can do that if you want to. But the point is, you're not a true independent contractor when you, let's say I'm a painter, Brian, and I paint your house. And you say, wow, you did a great job. And you tell your neighbor, Fred, hey, yeah, this guy did a great job painting my house. And Fred says, well, I'd like to call him and get him to paint my house. And you say, oh, no, I'll tell you whether he can paint your house or not. And I have to go through you to paint his house. Then am I an independent contractor? Or am I pretty much working for you?
That's right.
AEW, and here's the thing. These are the same type of contracts. The numbers are bigger and there's different provisions for all the new types of media and the new things that have come up that have been thought of, but it's the same kind of contracts as they were signing in the 80s, where no matter how much more detailed they get, you're still an independent contractor, even though in the 80s and 90s, pretty much every one of the boys always say, you know what? If I sign this contract, if I don't like it, fuck it. I'm just going to quit and go home, right? It was that kind of thing.
And they did. I mean, that's why you hear about things like Sid going to play softball.
Yeah.
Who does that with a contract? All right, I'll just go home.
Yeah, but that's because it was new in the business, and everybody was used to saying, if I don't like where I'm working, I'm just going to say fuck you and
actually you
go
did
somewhere
that too.
else.
You did that in 1990. You still had a contract when you walked out.
Yes. For till the following May, and that was the end of October. But I said, fuck you, I'm going home. I don't want to be here anymore. But the point is, there was some element of you could always go. So now there's literally nowhere else to go to make anywhere near the level of money as you will earn in WWE, or that Tony Khan will pay you in AEW / Ring of Honor. And even TNA has right of first refusal. That means you can work outside dates as long as you call the TNA office and say, hey, can I work for Brian and Jim on February 28th? Then they say yes, and then you can do it. Well, that's back to the painting story I just talked about. So all the companies where you will make any money control your goddamn career. And if Brian, tell me, I've never worked in the real world, but if you work for a company, they can send you, if you're an employee of a company, they can, any kind of company, a widget company, they can call you in the office, say, hey, the boss wants you to go to Acme Widgets in Cleveland and tell him how we do shit, right?
Yeah, if that was the case, the widget company would pay my airfare. They'd put me up in a hotel. They'd give me a per diem. I'd be able to buy food. I'd have everything taken care of, maybe even a car fee. Because I'm an employee of the company. I'm representing the company. I'm doing business on behalf of the company that would benefit the company.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between that and ordering a wrestler to go to Cleveland to work a show?
Or you go to work for Joe in Cleveland, he'll send you a plane ticket, and he'll have some stooge pick you up in the back seat of his fucking stinky car, and they get a good rate at the hotel in town. Or maybe the local guy will fucking, put you up there.
The wrestlers get $20 off at dinner tonight.
Yeah, but only if you sign autographs for the staff. So that, again, fuck, if they want to be showbiz instead of the fucking good old-fashioned goddamn carny bullshit we used to pull off and love it, then they're going to have to play like big boys, aren't they? If you make somebody an employee, it doesn't mean they have to be an employee for the rest of the goddamn life of the company. But for the time that you're saying that you want them to be there, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, they ought to be an employee.
And by the way, Tony Khan, someone who's constantly battling the perception of him that's created by his behavior and cares a lot about what people say and what people think, and does these media scrums because he wants to be out there and he wants people to listen to him, what would make him a bigger babyface ever than if he actually did it? Because he could do it a lot easier than WWE and their bureaucracy over there. Tony Khan could just say we're doing it. Unless Shad says no. But he would be the biggest babyface ever. Again, like you said, it can't be the giant roster, and there's no reason they should have as many wrestlers as they do.
But hold on, stop, pause, hold that thought, because now they're going to say, oh, Cornette and Last said we ought to fire half the guys. They don't want the boys to have jobs. No, unless you're running a charitable foundation that is subsidizing 150 or 75 people's fucking lives and families, then there's no reason to have a roster in one wrestling company of that many people. But you could treat a smaller number, say 80 or 100, much better and rotate those people around every few years so everybody gets a chance at it.
Well, the other thing, too, I guess there would be nothing to preclude you from having, let's say, just to throw a number out there, let's say you had 60 employees that were wrestlers. You could still have 20 independent contractors on top of that if they are working in a different way than the employees that are told where to go and what to do and everything.
Yes, if you are booking them per date and paying them a flat fee per date, and they continue to work for other people and other promotions around the world, and if they make your dates a preference, well, that's just peachy keen, but they can't have a written agreement with you that you have first right of refusal, then you're an independent contractor, and they could have those because it would be cheaper for the company, and it would be a better goddamn chance for some of the guys to come from the independents and at least see if they might be translating before they goddamn buy them for 3 years and again, maybe people in other countries, because we do have the global audience, Brian, don't understand, well, why is it more expensive for a company to make somebody an employee instead of an independent contractor? Because then you pay into their Medicare and their federal, their taxes and the whole 9 yards, and you have to have an insurance plan that they can be involved in, and you're paying for that. And we've always said that the territories, and it is still true, even Crockett Promotions in his biggest year in the 80s would not have been able to afford to make the wrestlers employees for all the different expenses it would incur. But it's been bullshit since probably 1998 that Vince McMahon couldn't. You were going to say something.
Yeah, if you look at wrestling, let's say in the late 80s, WWF, I think if things were done right, a Hulk Hogan would be an employee and the job guys on the taping would be independent contractors.
Yeah.
And it would be probably job guys, sorry, Dustin, and undercard guys, and guys coming in for one shot here and there, and that'd be it. Everyone else would be a real employee. You know, all the guys that were working regulars 6-7 days a week, those were employees.
And you had to kind of also evaluate talent properly then, which is not something that's done these days, because, somebody will say, well, if they only paid so-and-so to come in from Mexico every once in a while per shot, then he might sign with the WWE. Well, then good for him. Because if I'm bringing a motherfucker in for a shot every once in a while, I'm not going to really miss him if he's gone, am I?